Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the vlog. This is episode 26 and it's going to cover a session from Golden Nugget, one of the casinos in downtown Las Vegas. A lot of people go to Vegas, but they mostly spend their time on the Strip. If you guys haven't been to downtown, I highly recommend it. So before I jump into some poker hands, let me share some of my thoughts about this poker room with you. First, the most noteworthy thing about Golden Nugget is that they have uncapped buy-ins. I'm not sure if this is true for all their games, but for the no limit it is. So when you're playing 1-2 no limit, even though your effective stack is essentially just what you have in front of you, there's pretty much always going to be someone who covers you just because they brought a bunch of money with them. Secondly, the games here are a lot of action. I'm guessing this just has to do with the fact that it's downtown Vegas. So if you're someone who likes to play wide ranges, you're going to fit right in over here. And lastly, fun fact, a lot of people don't really know where to park when they go to downtown Vegas. It's usually pretty packed and also kind of expensive, but the Golden Nugget has free valet parking. They just work on tips. Moving on to some of the not so great things about the Golden Nugget poker room. For me, number one is gonna be that cash plays. Personally, I prefer chips only just because it's so much easier to tell how much money someone really has.
Well,
where were they?
they were right here, but
Were they
I had them the whole time. I should have said something or put them out there. I'm sorry. I obviously wasn't trying to angle you at all.
Secondly, the tables in this room are very cramped together. Granted, they're not working with a lot of floor space, but it's still just not the most comfortable environment to play in. And lastly, this room on average has more rags than you would otherwise find in other poker rooms around the Strip. This is obviously just because there's not as many tourists in downtown Vegas as there is on the Strip, but it's still something to note if you guys are planning on playing here. Overall, although my thoughts aren't written in stone yet, I'd have to give this place a 4 out of 10. There's a few things I like, but for the most part, I'd probably prefer to just play on the Strip somewhere. Moving on, I decided to play 1-2 no limit, which kind of plays like a 1-3 or maybe even a 2-5 on some occasions, just at this particular location. Decided to buy in for $300, which is 150 big blinds. Let's see if we can run it up. Alright, in this first hand there's 3 limpers and I look down at pocket 9s from the small blind, decide to raise it up to $17 and only get called by the first limper who was under the gun. The flop comes Jack 5-3 with 2 diamonds. Somehow I don't flop a set. For all you guys who think I flop sets all the time with pocket pairs, just wanted to show you it's not always the case. 1 out of 3 times I actually don't flop a set, so unfortunately this is one of those times. We could bet here to protect from flush draws and maybe potential straight draws, but against a passive opponent I think it's fine to just check, so that's what I decided to do, and she checks it back. The turn is the king of hearts, and at this point I'm just trying to get to showdown, so I check, she checks back. The river's an offsuit 3, check check, we win at showdown with pocket 9s. Just wanted to include this hand because I'm starting to notice, based on hands that I include, I seem to always run super hot or play crazy pots, but in reality there's a bunch of hands like these every session. In the second hand, there's an early position open to $6, a caller in between, and I look down at ace-jack of clubs from middle position. I think there's merit to both calling and putting in a raise here. I lean more towards a raise just because ace-jack multi-way isn't going to do as well as going heads up in position. So I make it $25. A player in late position makes the cold call, and the first 2 players make the call as well. So 4 ways to a flop, we're third to act, and the flop comes Jack 6-4 with 2 spades. Pretty great board for us, so when the action checks to me with top pair, top kicker, I definitely want to start off with a bet, so I make it $55. And unexpectedly, the player behind us makes it $110. Just a min raise. The other 2 players fold, so when the action gets back to us, I think this is one of those spots where it's a very player-dependent decision. If we make the call, I think we're going to have around $150 to $200 behind, so I take a while weighing my options here. Folding seems out of the question, although there is some percentage of the time that players will cold call 3-bets with hands even as good as kings or queens, sometimes even aces that trap, even though we block that. But aside from that, we should be good most of the time, unless obviously we're just running into a set. Calling seems fine as well, although I'll be pretty lost on most turn cards as to whether or not our hand's good, and going all in doesn't seem like it could be that bad. Eventually, I decide on a call and see what develops on the turn, so I put the extra 55 in and we go heads up to a turn. The dealer puts out the 8 of hearts, seems like a pretty safe card. I check it over to him and he puts out a bet of $100. At this point, I think it's time to just go with it, so I check raise all in for around 170, I think it was total. He actually hesitates for a few seconds, but eventually puts in the call. The river is the queen of hearts, which is actually not my favorite card. If he was somehow raising with a top pair type of hand, there's a lot of 2-pair combinations out there, but nothing we can do about it now. I show ace jack, and surprisingly, our opponent turns over jack 9 of diamonds. So nice that that one went our way. Pretty big pot considering that this is a 1-2 no limit game. In the next hand, the straddle is on, and we look down at the beautiful 8-7 of clubs from under the gun. I open it up to $15. The big blind makes the call, and the straddler calls. So we're gonna go 3 ways in position to a flop of 6-5-5 with 2 clubs. So we flop a straight draw, a flush draw, and an open-ended straight flush draw. The big blind checks, and the player in the straddle leads out of flow for $30. I think you could make a case for both calling and raising here, but in this exact spot, I lean a little more towards a call, simply because the board is paired, we have the big blind left to act, and facing an all-in after putting in a raise would really suck, because the hands he's doing that with are probably way ahead of ours. So for all these reasons, I decided to just call in position and see what happens on the turn and river. The big blind folds, so we go heads up to a turn, which unfortunately is the 5 of hearts, putting 3 5s out there, and the straddler continues for $80. So what originally looked like a beautiful board has kind of turned into a disaster. We're very likely drawn to just 2 outs now. The player in the straddle and I have been pretty friendly. He actually said he watches the vlogs, so I let him know I don't think he's in the mood to fold a full house, show my cards, and throw it in the muck. Luckily, he gets to show us for the vlog, and he had pocket 10s, so we were drawing pretty slim there if we decided to call the turn. Kind of unlucky, but who knows, maybe that turn card saved us some money, as I was probably not folding to any turn aside from a 6 or a 5. Next, we look down at Queen Jack of spades from under the gun. I decide to open to $10. The player next to act calls, the button and big blind also call. So 4 ways to a flop, which comes king 10-5 with 2 diamonds and 1 spade. Action checks to me, and I think there's a bunch of different ways you could play this hand right here. Certainly betting seems fine with an open ender, and a king high board should favor us for the most part. Checking and trying to realize our equity seems good as well, and even potentially turning our hand into a bluff with a check raise either here or on the turn seems good as well. This exact scenario, our table was really sticky, no one seemed to want to fold, so I decided to check. The player next to act bets $20, the button folds, and the big blind calls. We have a pretty clear call here, so that's what I decided to do. The turn's a jack of hearts, so we add a pair to our open ender. The big blind checks, I check once again, and this time the player under the gun 1 checks back. The river is the 9 of spades, so we make our straight. The big blind checks, and I think at this point the player next to act doesn't have much of anything, so I want to put out a small bet to guarantee getting at least some value. So I make it $40. He thinks about it for a while, but eventually says, I want to see it. Puts in the 40, big blind folds, I show the queen jack, and we're good. Not sure if I'm in love with the way I played that hand, but it worked out pretty well this time. In the next hand, there's 3 limpers, and I look down at ace queen offsuit from the big blind, raise it up to $17, and get called by the button and small blind. The flop comes king, queen, 5 with 2 diamonds. The small blind checks, and although it's a pretty good flop for our hand, I think it's one that we want to be checking, so that's what I decided to do, and the button checks back. The turn is the jack of diamonds, and the small blind checks it once again. I think there's merit to both checking and betting here. In this particular case, I decided to go with a bet of $25, and now the button puts in a raise to $75. The small blind quickly gets out of the way, and although my instinct is to call, I decided to make a fold just because this player in particular had put almost no money into the pot in the past 30 minutes. It's kind of hard to come up with hands that he's representing though, seeing as a king should be betting on the flop as well as a flush draw. But then again, this is 1-2 and a lot of players check back strong hands or even flush draws for that matter. So I don't even give it too much thought, just decide to let it go and move on to the next hand. A few minutes later, we get involved with this same player once again, making open to $12 with 7-6 of hearts from middle position. The player in our direct left calls and the big blind calls. The flop comes 10-7-4 with 2 clubs and 1 heart, and the big blind, who is the aforementioned player, leads out for $15. With so many good turn cards for our hand, I think it's a pretty clear continue, so that's what I decide to do, and the player on our left folds. The turn is the jack of diamonds, and he doesn't slow down, puts out a bet of $50. So normally when a player continues betting after betting the flop, even though the turn changes the possible top pair on the board, it really narrows their range because you would imagine most top pairs on the flop would just check for pot control once an overcard comes on the turn. I expect hands like ace 10, king 10, etc. All those hands should just be checking here. So now he's pretty much saying he has a monster or pretty much nothing at all for the moment. But being that this guy is heavily weighted towards value and almost never bluffs, I decided to let it go, and sure enough, he shows up with one of those hands that does make sense in this exact scenario, Jack 10 offsuit. That explains the continued aggression on the turn. Alright, so that wrapped up the session. Got into the game for $300, never had to add on once luckily, and cashed out for $611. Not a bad win considering that it's 1-2 no limit and I only played for a short amount of time. So final thoughts before I wrap the video up. Main thing is gonna be, even though I don't completely love this poker room, I highly suggest you guys go to downtown Las Vegas at least once. There's just so much to do. I didn't even get to scratch the surface, and I'm sure even if I go back plenty of more times, I still won't discover everything that place has to offer. Also, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Andrew Nemi. He took time out of his day to personally deliver a hoodie to me while I was on vacation there. I should probably, hold on. Yeah, so totally unnecessary, but he personally handed me this hoodie. Favorable, as you guys know. So thanks again, Andrew. That was super cool of him. Speaking of appreciation, thank you guys for watching this video. Thanks for all of you who liked the video. That really helps me out actually. And also all the comments I get are really fun to read, and I like interacting with you guys. Next vlog is gonna be from Red Rock Casino. So if you guys are interested, subscribe if you haven't, and stay tuned. So yeah, I think that's it. I guess I'll just end the video right now.